where you see a line of breadcrumbs. It's a trail, and those who will follow this trail will realize it leads to something, and something massive. Welcome to the Island Podcast. I am your host, Alvis Samuel, and I started off with that breadcrumb just because there is something more that meets the eye to this balloon. And this balloon that was just shot down from the United States military, this balloon that traveled from Alaska through Canada all the way down to Montana and goes all the way across, makes its way southeast, stuttered on my own words, but makes its way southeast all the way down to South Carolina, goes into the Atlantic, and then it gets shot down. There is a trail here, and I'm not talking about the trail of the balloon, but I'm talking about the trail of something that was whispered everywhere. Actually, it wasn't even whispered; it was told loudly. But there's not a lot of people who caught it. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm talking about in just a moment. Because first, we need to finish the story that I started with the last episode. The story of the story of the one, I had to say it again, who began the greatest just betrayal in human history. This one. And because of this one, we have a huge thing that's going on in the world. And this one, like I said in the last episode, he was called a devil. Yes, that one. So he betrays his head. He betrays the head for money. And this money was given to him, and we are now set in the scene. Now, if you've been listening to this story, the last episode, you can see that I kind of modernized the story, put it into today's times. So I'm going to keep it in today's times with this modernizing of this story. I've given no names. I've given just symbols of these people. So let's just go ahead and jump into this story and where we left off, where the one who did the betrayal is greeting the head of the company like it is his brother. And the head of the company comes out and says to him, betrayed me by greeting me like I am your brother. That is where we left off at. That is exactly what was said. Not verbatim, but that was what was said to the one who was basically being a traitor. And in the midst of this greeting, a fight breaks out upstairs. Upstairs, right outside the boss's office. And the fight is between the police officers making the arrest of the boss and his, you guessed it, his own personal bodyguards. And in this fight, like I said in the previous episode, one of the officers was injured. Not the bodyguard, but one of the officers was injured. And the boss comes out and says, none of this fighting. I will go with these officers. And he calms everything down and looks at his bodyguard and tells the bodyguard, this is not how we do things. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword. And in this instance, those who live by the gun will get shot down and killed by it. That is what he said to his lead bodyguard, the head of the security. And then he helps the officer who's injured up, gets him healed, heals him himself, bandages him up, and sends him on his way. That officer just stays there in awe. And the boss walks out with the police. That was where we left off. But we are not following the boss. We are following the traitor. So what does the traitor do after this? I can tell you. He begins to struggle with himself. He's holding on to the money, the case that was given to him filled with cash. He's holding on to it very, oh so very tightly. He's following the police officers who has handcuffed and drugged the boss out of the building, put him in the back of the police car, and they're hauling him off. And the traitor, the one, the devil himself, follows. And as this one is following in his own vehicle, he is struggling with himself, asking, what have I done? Have I done the right thing? And all he knows deep inside, he has not done the right thing, but yet he can't help himself. And he's struggling with himself on the inside because of what he has done. He has traded in everything. He has become a traitor to his own company for some cash. And he's realizing that things aren't going to go the way that he thought they were. So he goes back to the other company, the rival company, and says, I don't want your money. Take it back. Take it all back. And the boss of the rival company looks at the man and says, we gave you what you want. Do not step back in this building ever again, or we will have you arrested as well. Take your money and leave. That was the last time he saw that man's face. So the one grabs the briefcase. He doesn't even take the money to his own bank account. He goes straight home. And all night he struggles. Because what is going on is all hell now has broken loose with two companies. And these two rival companies are both, at first look, they're falling apart. And it's because of this one. And as this one tries to lay his head down to go to bed, he keeps struggling. He's fighting inside himself. And all of a sudden depression creeps in. And he's wondering, what has he done? How can he fix this? He can't give the money back. He doesn't want to spend the money because he knows deep down that he's done something massively wrong. Something that would end him. So the sun rises. And as the sun rises, he's still awake. He did not go to sleep at all at night. And as the sun rises, this man, this one, this devil, gets into his own vehicle, has the briefcase, and drives to the edge of a cliff. He doesn't drive over the cliff. No. He sits there and looks over the cliff, looks down on the city of where these two businesses are, and says to himself, this man who has done nothing wrong. I've done everything wrong. I made it seem like he was the one that was doing fraudulent things. I was the one who made it seem like he was the one stealing money out of a donation box, basically. I was the one that was doing everything wrong. But yet I'm sitting here in my vehicle while he is going through hell. I'm sitting here in my vehicle with this briefcase full of money, millions upon millions of dollars. It doesn't seem right. This man is going to die on my account. His life is going to be nothing when they're done with him upon my account. So the only way for me to make this right is for me to end my life. But that's not the only reason why. Because eventually they're also going to come after me. Because they are going to know that I was the one who kept up with all the books. Because I know one thing, they're going to take the head and get rid of him, then go after everybody else who was underneath. Not only that, the others, we just sat down at this dinner, at this feast the other night. The others are going to know that I was the one who betrayed our own company. And they're going to come after me once they realize that they don't have a job anymore. They're all coming for me. So I got to end this now. So he reaches into the glove compartment of his vehicle and it falls open. And inside that glove compartment, there is a gun. He pulls out that gun as he sits and ponders to himself, he's made a terrible mistake and he doesn't know what else to do, and it's eating him inside, and everyone's going to eventually come after him, and his life, as what he knows, it's all completely over, and he's holding tightly on to that money that he got from the rival company. He opens his mouth, puts the barrel in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. To his surprise, the gun doesn't go off. So he gets out of the car with the money. He finds a tree. And in his vehicle, he opens up but he opens up the trunk of his car. And in his trunk, he has a rope. So he decides he's going to hang himself. That's what he decides. And as he's going to do it, he's still going to hold on to that briefcase. He's going to hold on to that money. So that's exactly what he does. He ties the rope around the tree, he ties the rope around a branch of the tree. Make sure it's a strong branch. Ties a noose, puts his head in the noose, and then he jumps over the cliff, holding that briefcase full of money. And then, to his surprise, as he jumps, the branch breaks and he falls, hits every single rock on the way down, feeling all the pain. He doesn't get to go easy. He doesn't get to go without feeling physical pain. He falls down the cliff, hits every rock, every branch that's in his way, every thorn, and he rolls and rolls, holding on to the briefcase. The briefcase pops open, and all of that money gets caught up in the wind, and the wind blows it away. It blows the money all away, cash just flying everywhere. And what's funny about this cash, not one person at the bottom of the hill cared enough to even grab it. And as this man falls and hits every branch and every rock, every thorn, right as he hits the final destination of the ground that he's going to lay upon, he hits the ground, splats all over the ground. But he's still alive and in very much pain, and he's lost all that money. It was taken away by the wind, but yet he's still holding on to the briefcase. And with his last breath, he looks up, looks at the skies, one eye barely opening, and then he curses his boss. And that's how he dies. You see, in this story, the traitor does not get to go free. At one moment, he thought he did, and then it ate him from within. And then he was trying to get off easy, but yet it never happened. He didn't want to feel the pain, but yet he felt it. And with his last breath, he decides not ask for forgiveness, not just scream, "I'm sorry for what I've done," but he still holds on to some pride in himself and curses his boss because he was a devil. I'm saying this story because that is exactly what we are dealing with when it comes to our own government in the United States of America. I've said some of these people are resigning, some of these people are stepping down, but yet they know deep down inside that they are traitors to their own country. And it's going to eat them alive, and they will not get off easily at all. When it's all said and done, they will not get off at all. I'm telling you that right now. So now, what does all of this have to do with the balloon, the Chinese spy balloon? Because you see, there's breadcrumbs there. There's a trail with this balloon. And there was a person, there was a name that was said for everybody to hear. And everyone heard it, but yet no one truly did real digging, real investigation when this happened. They said exactly this. There were spy balloons that went over the United States multiple times when President Trump was president of the United States, and he did nothing. So there's been a few very small, I will call it the minute amount of people who have actually did some investigation. And I was paying attention, so I had to do my own. So I found out exactly who was supposed to tell the president about these balloons. Because if it's happened in the past, but yet no one knew about it, why do we know now? Well, that's because there was a civilian who brought out their phone and showed the entire nation over this China spy balloon. But yet it's happened in the past before, but no one knew. Well, no one of our statures, but high up in the Pentagon, yes, they knew. Everyone knew outside of the commander in chief of the United States at that time, which was President Trump. Why did he not know? It was because he was never what's the word? He was never briefed on it at all. They never told him who was in charge of telling the president that the sovereignty of our nation has been is at risk. Who was in charge of that? No worries, I will tell you this man's name. He was a general for the Marines, worked in the Pentagon. It was his job. This man's name is General James Mattis, aka Mad Dog. He was the one that was supposed to tell the president that there was a spy balloon going over the United States, but yet he never said a word to the president. And you can actually find this information yourself. His exact words was he did not tell the president because he knew that the president has a temper and he was afraid how the president would react, how he would respond. So he decided to not tell the president at the time, that was President Trump, of the spy machine aircrafts that was going over the United States. Let's stop right there. So you have a general not following the chain of command. That's what you have. It's called insubordination. That is treason when you're dealing with the military and the commander in chief. It is his job to present this information to his boss, who is the commander in chief, which is the president of the United States. At that time, it was Donald Trump. So James Mattis, aka Mad Dog, General Mad Dog, and what blows my mind is he brags on he made a living on killing people. His words, I quote, those were his words. This man is saying that Trump was unpredictable. This is like you can't make this up. But let's keep going because the trail doesn't end right there. Because this same general, while Trump was in office, resigned while Trump was in office after all of this. He quit, gave in his resignation letter, and he says, I'm out of here. It wasn't even Trump who put him in that position. Actually, it was President Obama. James Mattis was put in this position by President Obama, and he was, by the Senate, almost unanimous on getting this job. A vote, he was almost unanimous. Almost everyone voted for him during Obama's aid after he was one. Let's put this man in this position. He was put in power by Obama, but then he resigns, steps away with Trump. As I'm at I'm not making any of this up. You can find this information for yourself. He resigns after the spy balloons. He resigns after all of this. Why would he resign after this? Because wouldn't it be a little interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting if he would have kept his job? What would have happened to him? We won't know, at least not right now, because he quit. He didn't like working for Trump. It sounds like he just didn't want to do his job. And that's tell his boss that our enemies are at the border of our country. And they are sending in aircraft spying on our military. He didn't want to do his job, so he quits. Yes, don't just take my word for this. Look it up yourselves. General James Mattis from the Marine Corps. Look it up yourself. Just like I said in the previous episode, he wasn't the first one, nor was he the last one who's been resigning or stepping down, taking a lesser position. However, these people are stepping down and stepping away, hoping that they're going to get away. Understand what's happening. Understand that this balloon is part of the breadcrumb trail. Understand what is going on. Like I said, this country is being traded in. Your own sovereignty is being taken away from you, from people that we would hope had our best interests, but yet they did not. They do not. So I'm telling everyone right now, prepare yourselves. I say this in almost every episode, every podcast that I do. I say, prepare for what's about to come. Prepare yourselves. I'm not trying to scare you or scare anybody else out there, but I'm just wanting to turn on the light, get the spotlight, and shine it where it needs to go. Because there are people in our own government, they're in high positions, who are traitors, and they don't care, at least not yet. Do not be surprised when they find more and more of these spy balloons, because the last one they find will be the one that detonates.